This video was recorded in Krabi, Thailand on February 16, 2020. It shows a delivery driver carrying dry cement along a rural. To avoid hitting an elderly person walking, the driver swerved sharply. This sudden move made his flatbed truck lean during a turn, causing several pallets of cement to fall off and break open on the road. A cloud of cement dust covered an oncoming car, and some blocks hit its front bumper. Both drivers met at the local police station later to sort things out. The delivery company paid for the damages, and the driver was fined a small amount for reckless driving. Warehouses can hold hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars worth of goods, and they're the reason your favorite stores are always stocked. However, disasters in warehouses can lead to unexpected shortages. On July 10, 2011, some Russian warehouse workers were moving boxes and retrieving items, unaware that one of the shelving units was about to collapse. Despite a normal day with workers and forklifts bustling around, pay attention to the 4 support pillars, especially the third one from the left. Suddenly, one shelf gave way, causing a chain reaction that almost destroyed the entire warehouse. Workers had to run for safety, not sure if more of the warehouse would come down. Fortunately, only one row and about a third of another fell. It's unclear what was stored on those shelves, but something liquid was seen spreading across the floor as workers escaped. Hopefully it wasn't harmful or too valuable. From what it looks like, this place is where cranes end up when they're no longer needed. What you might think is a crane accident is actually a railway crane being deliberately pushed off the tracks to be broken down and turned into scrap metal. It's a tough way to end after years of service. For those of you who don't know, railway cranes are special cranes used on railroads to maintain tracks and move heavy loads like rail segments and other equipment. They operate by lifting and moving heavy objects, ensuring that the railway infrastructure is maintained or quickly restored. The massive container ship Durban, operated by the Orient Overseas Container Line, was approaching Pier 66 at the port of Kaohsiung in Taiwan. As it neared, it got too close to another container ship, the docked EM Constancy at Pier 70. The pilot of the Durban couldn't slow down or stop in time, resulting in the ship sideswiping the front of the EM Constancy. This incident occurred on June 3rd at about 11 a.m. Afterward, the Durban's bridge hit a dock crane's boom, continuing to push against it. This caused the container crane, labeled GC8, to structurally fail and start collapsing onto the dock. As it fell, containers were knocked over like dominoes, and the crane even hit another crane before crashing to the ground. At this point, dock workers were seen running to avoid the debris. A dock worker was injured with a cut on his right arm in 2. Engineers got trapped inside the crane but were later rescued. Keeping a safe distance during demolitions can save lives, and this video proves it. At first, you might not notice what happens, but let me slow the video down for you. This took place during the demolition of the buildings of Oprostokov in the Czech Republic, where some stones flew out dangerously close to the spectators. It was a narrow escape that still gives chills even years later. Cranes are essential because they move heavy items like shipping containers, bridge parts, and construction vehicles. It's all about balancing the weight. Modern cranes have computers that alert operators if a load is too heavy. However, these computers are only as accurate as the data they receive. A crane accident in Chile highlights how important it is to have correct calculations to ensure everyone's safety. Thankfully, nobody was injured when the crane collapsed. The workers on the roof quickly moved to safety instead of getting hurt. However, someone is definitely going to be in trouble with their boss. Not only is the crane ruined, but part of the building and the heavy machinery being lifted are also damaged. This raises the question, is there any warning before something like this happens? According to a former crane worker on Reddit, the crane's computer system will activate alarms and lights if the load is too heavy, giving warnings well before it becomes critical. However, a reckless operator might ignore these signals. If you ever see a crane operator disabling these warning lights, it's a good idea to get away fast. It's not something you see every day, a routine task at a factory taking an unexpected turn. Normally, moving an excavator is just part of the day's work, but in this case, the lever transporting the excavator couldn't handle the weight and lost balance. Fortunately, the engineers nearby sensed something was off and managed to get out of the way just in time. No one was injured, but it's possible that someone ended up losing their job over the incident. Imagine you're filming a happy moment, but instead you capture a terrible accident. That's what happened to a family in a small boat, recording with their cameras. Suddenly they caught a 740-foot tanker as it crashed straight into a historic mansion by the river. The tanker, named the Vitas Spirit, tried to drop its anchors to stop, but the anchors couldn't handle the ship's weight and failed to stop it in time. As a result, the tanker plowed into an 18th century mansion, reducing it to rubble. This is a real example of what happens when human-made machines meet the forces of nature. In this case, the vehicle couldn't handle the pressure from the shifting soil and ended up bouncing around. The driver definitely experienced a wild ride. It must have been quite the ordeal, don't you think? On a Wednesday morning, just before 9 a.m., construction workers were performing their usual tasks at a site near the 2300 block of East St. Elmo Road in southeast Austin. They were positioned underneath a crane as it hoisted a large concrete wall. Suddenly, the operation became dangerous when one of the crane's wires broke. This caused the concrete wall to fall abruptly. A worker who was on the wall at the time fell with the slab. After the slab fell, the crane's structure was compromised and it collapsed.
Holy crap.
Austin Travis County EMS quickly responded to the emergency at the site. The severity of the incident prompted urgent medical and safety responses to manage the risks of significant injuries. The Austin Fire Department initially reported that someone was trapped under the crane debris, but fortunately this person was later freed. Warehouses need to be neat and organized to ensure smooth operations, especially when managing thousands of items under tight deadlines. However, there was an incident in a particularly messy and disorganized warehouse. The specifics of when and where it happened are unclear. This place clearly needed to focus on retraining its staff. One forklift driver in particular lacked spatial awareness. The warehouse was so disorganized that it could have been a nightmare for safety inspectors. In the incident, the forklift driver, carrying a wide load, tried to squeeze through a narrow gap. He almost made it, but the front right corner of his load snagged on a shelf, causing it to collapse. The low-quality video makes it hard to see exactly what was on the shelves, but they seem to contain heavy appliances. The driver managed to jump out just in time as everything tumbled down. Other workers rushed to the scene, including a man in white who sprinted through the dust to check on the driver, followed by the warehouse manager. Hopefully, this costly mistake spurred some much-needed changes in the warehouse. Here's a group of men who thought it was a great idea to demolish a silo with a sledgehammer, not realizing the danger of this risky venture. As expected, after a few hits, the silo came crashing down. Fortunately, they managed to escape just in time, or else they would have been in the news for all the wrong and tragic reasons. During a private movie screening at the Ayala Center in CBU, Philippines, on June 15th at around 8:50 p.m., the theater's ceiling collapsed, injuring 6 people. About 300 attendees were watching the film when water began to drip from the ceiling, quickly turning into a heavy flow. Dreamscape Network Inc., the company that rented the cinema, explained that the soundproofing material behind the cinema gave way and fell, leading to the water pouring in. Moviegoers, soaked with water and ceiling plaster, were calmly led out of the cinema by security personnel. Paramedics arrived 15 minutes later to help those hit by falling debris. Jeanette Jackson, a communications manager for Cebu Holdings, mentioned that investigations into the cause of the collapse and the source of the water are still ongoing. International trade is a bustling industry. Every day, millions of shipping containers crisscross the globe, carrying items like coffee, silverware, and shampoo. These containers are swiftly moved around ports with the help of several heavy-duty machines. On June 9, 2015, one of these machines ran into trouble. At a port in Mexico, a top loader, which is a crane that picks up containers similar to a claw machine in an arcade, got stuck. Wait till you hear what happened next. The Spanish video caption roughly translates to "poorly performed maneuver damages merchandise in the container." It seems that the crane operator tried a risky move that didn't work out. Shipping containers come in 2 sizes, 20 feet and 40 feet. In the video, you can see 40-foot containers stacked on top of 2 20-foot containers, like a yellow one on top of 2 gray ones. It looks like the top loader was handling a 40-foot container that ended up snapping in half. It seems the operator might have attempted to lift 2 20-foot containers at the same time. The video illustrates that sometimes it's better to make a second trip, as now the entire port has a much bigger problem to sort out. In December 2018, a big accident involving 2 ships happened at Nansha Port in Guangzhou. The 300-ton Renjin 15, operated by Guangzhou Anxing Shipping Corporation, was trying to dock but lost control and couldn't stop or steer properly. It crashed into the Hezhou 10, a 698-ton ship that was already docked. The collision knocked containers off the Hezhou 10, damaging 16 of them. The Hezhou 10 ended up tilting to one side, and emergency teams had to come in to pump out water to stabilize it. The Renjin 15 also got badly damaged, to the point it couldn't be used at sea and needed major repairs. Luckily, no one was hurt, and there was no pollution caused by the accident. An investigation was started to figure out who was at fault and how to avoid such accidents in the future. The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland, suffered a severe collapse on March 26, 2024. The accident happened around 1:28 a.m. when the cargo ship Dolly, leaving the port of Baltimore, lost power and control, crashing into the bridge. This collision caused a significant section of the bridge to fall, damaging both the bridge and the vessel. There were injuries and fatalities due to the collapse. The U.S. Coast Guard labeled the event as a major marine casualty, with damages surpassing $500,000. Watching the setup unfold, you might have thought the person suspended over the ditch was going to be the clip's main focus, right? But unexpectedly, the roadside crane, which was supposed to be secure, ended up failing. It's a stark reminder of how things can turn out much differently than planned, almost like a betrayal, early in the morning in New York City. A crane at a construction site on 10th Avenue caught fire while carrying about 16 tons of concrete. The fire started in the part of the crane holding the concrete. The crane operator and construction workers tried to put out the fire with extinguishers, but it kept spreading. Eventually, the fire weakened the crane structure, causing the arm holding the concrete to collapse. This happened while they were still trying to control the fire, leading to concrete and crane parts falling onto 10th Avenue below. Firefighters quickly arrived from nearby buildings, evacuated the area, and fought the flames. They also set up hoses on the upper floors of the buildings to keep the fire from spreading further. I went up with the hoist with 2 fire extinguishers. I brought them up. I go in where the crane is, and I see the smoke everywhere. Firefighters were in the surrounding buildings, evacuated the buildings, and also stretched hose lines to the top floor. Thankfully, only 6 people were injured, including 2 firefighters, and the injuries were not life-threatening.
I guess it's all 5 now.
All of that concrete could have struck civilians, and this is spread out throughout the area here. So we were extremely lucky this morning. The situation could have been much worse, considering the densely populated area.